I say we're godly men,
Yeah, or godlike,
godlike.
or God substitute.
Yeah, kind of like the vegan version of God. Nothing real, but not the same.
nothing real but the imagination of being morally superior.
Right.
Well, I got updated. I don't know what happened. I don't feel any updated, but Zoom updated me anyway.
Oh, I thought you meant you got downloaded or something.
No, that would be a treat.
Isn't this something my new effect with the wind blowing in my hair? Looks like I'm right out in the elements, doesn't it?
This meeting is being you're already recording. How sweet.
Why not? That way I won't forget. I've done that a few times when I forgot to record it. I could still do it, but
Good plan.
Takes a few more steps. Besides, we quite often we say something funny in the pregame show, you know.
Yeah, I'm still being updated here, and my thingamabob isn't doing something. Well, I have, I think this is going to be a good show. So,
yeah, he wants to talk about a couple other things too.
Yeah, he wants to talk about, the first humans and skulls and all kind of interesting stuff.
Oh, and Egyptians in Australia, and also he was saying, I asked him, what do you want to talk about? And he said the new Earth changes coming at the end of the year.
Yeah, they got a big deal. That's a big deal for them. They had the Palladian ship came and activated some big rock or something, and then it's sort of a bit of activation across the world. They had a worldwide group meditation for that, and it's a big deal. He's in there with all the new agey stuff.
The big wigs, eh?
Yeah, the movers and shakers of the Earth's.
Yeah.
Well, they're busy people, The guy's like he's fighting the government and trying to bring justice to the Aborigines. As he started working with rocks. And he started working with rocks, then the Yowies start coming and making noise around his house. He lives up in the woods somewhere.
So you're going to tell your rock story again?
I want to tell my rock story. No, because this happens to be one of the reasons why they gave me that story.
Yeah, well, you tell it every show, but maybe this is the show they really want you to tell it on.
I don't tell it every other show, maybe.
Every other show. No, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he'll be on. I'm sure he'll be interested in hearing that. But they do know some people who are right on board with us. Like, you ever heard of Donnie Firmer? He's an elder.
An elder of what?
An elder in Australia, like an Aboriginal or whatever. Oh, here they are.
Hallelujah! They're on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder what time it is down there.
10:46 a.m. tomorrow.
If you want, I can tell the rock story.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, look, you got a good mic.
Yeah, I've got studio-ish mic.
I've got a Yowie mic. This is a Yowie mic. It says Yeti on it, I think.
Yep, I've got that one too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's a Yeti blue mic.
Oh, here comes the boss.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far. Right. We're ready to sort of say.
No, this is the green. We're warming up, so we're not going to go on for about another 10 or 15 minutes.
No, we're not live yet. We always go a little early just to make sure, how the sound is, go through all that kind of stuff. Everything looks great. You guys must have good internet there or something.
Well, sometimes.
We're in the rainforest occasionally.
Yeah. It's good, when it's bad, it's bad. So you've got us on a touch wood.
Well, there's no rain today.
Yeah.
No rain today. That's the big difference.
Well, so you know about us is we do a Sasquatch uh thing, but you know, Sasquatch is a big deal because they also are connected to the star people and all the indigenous people, and they're all connected to everything. But one of the reasons why I was poking Brian Bland, otherwise known as Pork Cunningham, I was telling him to yeah, we're not researchers, so this is why it's the Pork and Bean Show, because we're not trying to be big shots.
Yeah, I like that.
But I poked him because when you guys started working with the rocks, right?
Mhm.
And the rock people, I mean, and then the Yowie people started coming around your house around the same time or a little bit before that.
Mm.
Well, my story is the first thing that happened to me when I was connecting to the Sasquatch elders is they took me on a shamanic journey. They took me out of my sleep on a shamanic journey and had me talk to a rock. They had me talk to this rock for 3 hours.
Really?
And listen, and I do healing work, right?
Mm.
And so I've been following people in Australia for a while, because when I was like telling people about my healing work, I would get some Aboriginal elders. One was a man and one was a woman, would come and they would just kind of look at me. I could see them look at me. So for me, there's a connection between you guys and me, between the rocks, the elders, the Yowie, and you know, the whole, and the ET thing, and then the whole Egypt thing. So yeah, so this rock thing, the rock was talking to me for 3 hours about life on Earth and how rock and water make life, and it showed that every living thing on this planet in the beginning was made from water and rock, and then the water and rock would make more life, and then it went from little one-celled animals all the way up to the four-legged, and then eventually it got to human beings. When it got to human beings, and this guy said he was a rock god, meaning he's intelligent, and you know, when it got to human beings, it said water and rock make life, and in humans, the waters are in our blood, and the rock is in our bones. And then he said, our bones is what makes the blood. So our blood comes from a rock, water and rock. Okay, yeah. So that was 3 hours, you know, and I woke up, I was like, holy mackerel, and, you know, because I never had a shamanic journey before. Okay, but it's not over. It's not over yet. The next day, I was telling my son, I said, you know, this thing happened to me, a shamanic journey, and these two Mexican guys came and took me out of my bed and took me out west somewhere and had me talk to a rock. Okay, and then later that same day, the rock came to me again. Now I'm wide awake, walking around, and the rock says, we wanted humanity to have light. So we told the people how to make light. And then he showed me this whole thing about batteries are rocks and copper is rock. And when you move the copper in a magnet, you know, magnet and a rock and copper, when you spin them around, you generate electricity, right?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
And so the rocks were responsible for bringing light to humanity. Then he said, okay, that was the second day. Then the third day, he said, we wanted human beings to be able to communicate. So we through our making electricity, making light for people. We also created radio and television and now the internet so that human beings can connect to each other. Right? That's what the rock people was telling me. And I'm going, and this is like, again, this is the third day and I'm wide awake. And they're just talking to me like that. Okay. That's
because original ceremonies are always given in 3.
Yeah.
Well, and then lastly, about a year later, no, this was not a year later. This started in 2012, right? And that was my connection and introduction to the Sasquatch people. The Sasquatch people wanted me to know that not only are they psychic and intelligent beings, but everything in this universe is psychic and intelligent and highly intelligent. It's all working together. The last thing they'd said was just, I think it was in 2019 or 2020, which was years apart. They said, we wanted to give humanity the physics of consciousness. And then he showed me this little box. And the little box was only about that big. And there was light being made in that box. And you follow that box all the way down the line of, the power line, all the way down to the generators where the water and steam was making light, was making the electricity for that light. And that light went over and hit through the double slit experiment. And quantum physics, what they're saying basically was the whole language of science, of quantum physics, came from the rock people wanting us to know that there's a physics behind all that stuff. So that's the reason why I wanted to let you guys know that the Sasquatch people did that for me, and you guys are like working with rock people. Rock people going to heal you, and the other thing is the space people said one time that the highest vibration of the purest thing in the universe is a crystal. So there's that whole thing right there. So you guys can talk about whatever you want to talk to, as long as we mention Sasquatch or Yowie.
We're definitely going to mention Sasquatch, because our involvement with that is because the damn thing lives on our property. So we've actually been dealing with it for quite some time, and it's got out of hand. Not out of hand, but it's become quite intense. So I'm quite happy to talk about that. We wouldn't have done before, but we actually only talk about stuff when we're invited onto country by elders. And we only talk about this mob is because they basically came onto our country and asked us to talk about it. So we're quite happy to do that. Yeah. No problem.
I'm very much along the lines of my relationship with them is very much like, Donnie, your friend Donnie, the elder.
Yeah.
Like I've got a teacher-student relationship with them. To me, they're like beautiful beings, but absolutely. Yeah. They've changed my life, but
yeah, they're doing the same thing here too. That we've had them visit by screaming and yelling and the stuff they do, and B, by actually coming into my bedroom on about 5-6 occasions now, and they've done the other part of that, which is what your friend was talking about before, about those visions. We've had them too.
Yeah.
So yeah. More than happy to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. But I'm also interested, excuse me, because I was looking at prepping a little bit. So I looked at your YouTube channel. I'm interested in Egyptians in Australia, and I'm also interested in the earth changes you're talking about that you said you
Yeah, the whole ship. To me, they're all related. So you guys, we'll turn you loose and let you go any direction you want to go.
And and we got as much time as you guys do. We don't have any time limit. So if you whatever you want to.
Our normal show is 3 hours. Guys can go shorter or you can go longer. It's up to you.
Shorter. Yeah, because we're going to do another one after you guys. So
yeah,
we probably can't do 3.
No, we'll probably go for around an hour and a half. That'll cover it, because we've got another one later on today, and then we've got Alfred the Wembley with exopolitics tomorrow, and someone else. So we've got to try and I don't want to come out of this brain dead at the end of it all.
Okay. Hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever you want. Just let us know when you want to wind it down.
Do you want me to show any pictures or anything like that?
If you want to. Do you have them set up?
He can do it. He can set it up while we're going along. Yeah.
Because I can give you the screen share, right?
Yeah.
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 Well, I think we ought to fire it up then, because if not, we're just going to start. We're going to start anyway. We ought to fire up the show.
Give you any glyph messages or anything with sticks?
I won't talk about them. Yeah, they have. Don't worry about that.
It says I can't share disabled screen sharing.
That's because Brian's sleeping. Let him share the screen, Brian.
I will. Hold on. I like to be in charge of this.
That's a good way to be, mate, because in this world, you've got to try and take charge of your own destiny, because if not, someone else will.
Yeah. Okay. So let me get the show starting to record, and then I'll do my stupid little introduction, and then we'll get going.
Sounds great.
No worries.
So
Oh, yeah. Amanda Reeves, yeah. Okay.
yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, because when I go on shows and talk about the Sasquatch people and everything, I really enhance it.
And the Great Awakening, they're going to toss that in there somewhere with the, Palladians awakening the sacred rocks and all that stuff, You guys have done some major things over there.
It's Evan Strong, right? Stephen
Yep.
and Evan?
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. Are you guys father and son?
Yes.
Kind of figured that.
It has to be. No one else would do it.
So is Evan a chip off the old block there, Stephen?
Oh, I wouldn't call him a chip off the old block, thank God for that. No, I don't want him to be, honestly. But this block is very damaged, isn't it, Evan? No one got a chip from me.
Alrighty. I'm gonna get it going in a minute. Then I'll just do a silly little introduction, and then we'll get right into it.
Okay.
I would like to hear about the earth changes maybe first, if you want to, but you can go whatever direction you want to go in.
You guys lead us where you want us to go, and we'll follow. Okay, you pick up the one you want to start with, and we'll go with that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about earth changes then first, because that sounds interesting.
All right. Okay, we'll do that first.
We're friends of Mary Rodwell too. We've had her on the show.
Yeah,
She's actually writing a promo for the book that Leah and I have just written. She's writing it up right now. So
yeah. She actually interviewed me for a presentation she was doing, because she was not really aware, or she was just becoming aware, that Sasquatch and the Star Nations, they basically have the same message, and there's so much in common and whatever, that she was actually quite pleasantly surprised. And then she did a regression and everything on me, and we're actually pretty good friends, I think.
Oh, she's a nice lady. A good friend to have.
Yeah, she really is a nice lady.
Yeah, you got it.
We're going to be going live streaming. Hey,
everybody. My name is Port Cunningham, and I am here with my distinguished, honorable co-host, the world's handsomest man, Frank Oliver Baines.
Welcome, everybody, to the Pork and Bean Show.
This is the Pork and Bean Show, and I told you we like to goof around.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
And we're joined today, really honored to have our special guest from down under, Stephen Strong and Evan Strong, father and son. And welcome aboard, guys. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to this one. A bit of humor at the start's always good.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm Canadian, so
It's
a law. We're funnier than the Americans.
It's a law in Canada. You got to be humorous.
You got to make and you got to make fun of yourself too.
Okay, fair enough. We won't argue with that.
No, I like your style of humor. There's a Canadian comedy I watch called Letterkenny. And
yeah.
How
about the Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah.
Have you seen them?
I have, yes. Yeah, I like your style of comedy.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay,
we're going to talk about all kinds of things today, because you guys have a wide range of research and history and stuff that's going on in Australia. That a lot of it corresponds to things that are going on in the USA and the rest of the world. Like you have to do with the awakening, and you have to do with the truth of who we are on planet Earth and our true history.
Yeah. So, when I emailed you this morning, and I asked you, what did you want to talk about? You really piqued my interest, even when you said you wanted to talk about the earth changes coming at the end of the year. So tune us up with that.
Okay, we will, because to an extent, I believe the reason why the Yowies turned up at our property is to do with this. It's part of the same thing. All of this is interrelated. The earth changes is, we'll try and make this the short version, won't we?
Yeah, because there is a long
Oh,
version.
it's a hell of a long version. We'll cut it down to the very finest sort of details. This begins about 6 years ago. You see, when we go on to country in Australia, we don't go on to country unless we're invited by elders, or in one case, Yowies. We don't believe we have a right to go onto someone else's country or talk about their story unless they approach us. Now, about 6 years ago, one of the elders that we have a lot of credence with and have spent a lot of time with, met quite a few occasions, out of the blue rang me and told me there was a change coming. And I thought, oh yeah, I've heard that one before. We've all heard that, you know, the end is nigh and that sort of stuff. But being an elder of some very high standing, I thought, okay, we'll listen to all this. So I did have the somewhat cynical hat on, but what he told me was this. He said for about 5 years they'd been doing ceremonies at Uluru, which is, some people call it Ayers Rock, we call it Uluru, a big rock in the middle of Australia. And they were preparing for something massive that was taking place. And I said, yeah, okay, so what's the story with that? He said, well, what's going to happen is down the line, and he told me the date, it was December the 21st, 2020, wasn't it, Evan?
Mm-hmm.
And this was about 5 or 6 years before, and lo and behold, that was the date when the ceremony actually took place. He said there would be a ceremony. I said, oh, yeah, good. And he said that ceremony would be seminal. He said the Hopi, the Iroquois, the Cherokee, the Inuit people, the Mayans speak of the two roads, the changing that was going to take place. He said, this is the time. I thought, okay, fine. And then he went further. And this is where it got interesting. He said that after that ceremony, if it is successful, and there was no guarantee it would be, none whatsoever. And I've got to be honest, even the day before the ceremony, I didn't think it was going to happen. He said, when that happens, he said, all animals on this planet will have the chance to actually stay. He said, but only one animal has to earn that right. And ladies and gentlemen, the animal that has to earn the right are humans. All other animals have not broken the laws of nature from the time they've lived here. They've lived in accord with how they should live, and they lived with nature. We, over the last 6,000 to 7,000 years and going back even further, have competed against nature, and nature has said that is enough. So that was the beginning of this story. And he told me that each person would be challenged, and many would fail this test. So that's how it began. And after that, other elders contacted us, and some people who have since changed, haven't they, Evan, somewhat, told us the same story. And I remember on one occasion I spoke to another person, and I went further and I said, okay, I've been hearing the story of humans not making the grade. He said, oh yes, we all know that's going to happen. And I asked him at the time, I said, so tell me, what percentage of humans do the elders expect will get past and get over the finishing line? And I was asked to nominate a percentage myself. And he said, don't forget, this is not going to be an easy hurdle for many to overcome. And I made an estimation of about, well, what about 25% of the population would make it? Now, my logic was this, that humans, oh, the rabbits are there opening up his door again. Humans primarily aren't bad people. Yeah, misguided, misunderstood, and somewhat ignorant. But, you know, most of them are quite nice to each other. Not all of them, of course. And I said, look, my take is 25%. And he laughed at me. And I said, what, too high? And I said, too low? He said, oh, no, way too high. Go down. Oh, God. I said, well, okay, all right, I'll go down. Because he said there are 2 tests that we have to pass. And I thought, oh, okay, well, look, I'll go down to 10%. Would that be right? And he laughed again. I said, well, what's going on here? He said, look, this is how I got that number. I reckon, I said, there's a lot of people who have learnt the art of loving each other, because there were two things we had to get right. But they didn't tell me what they were. I just assumed one of them was to understand what love meant, because I think that's the most powerful force in the cosmos.
Yep.
And if you don't get that, and obviously a lot of humans don't, or we wouldn't have wars and pollution and all the crap that's going on. I said, if you don't get that, you're not welcome. He said, you're right about that. He said, but you didn't get the second test. We incarnate onto this planet in particular, which I've been told is the most difficult one to incarnate on. And there's two things we have to get right. And when I got to 10%, and they told me I was wrong, he told me what the second part was. He said, you've got to get a pass mark in love, and you've got to get a pass mark in understanding why you incarnated here, the purpose of living, why we exist. If you don't make an attempt in that area, and this is why you came here, you must leave. Anyway, the long and short of it was, the number they came up with at the time, and that's changed, and we're going to thank COVID for that. I know that sounds bizarre, but we'll get to it, was 2%. And I thought, God, that's not really good. Then he gave me the bad news. That was the reasonably not so good news. He said, there's one trick with this ceremony. And I said, oh yeah, what is it? That's why they were contacting me. He said, number one, the elders will actually be there, and we'll tell you what happened on the day when they went there. And by the way, for the first time ever in Australia, Uluru was closed up for 2 days on those days, and everyone was thrown off the site at 10 o'clock on the day of the 21st. And the next day it was shut down too. And there were all sorts of reasons about why it happened.
Yes.
And they were all lies, because they had to be, because they had to keep it secret. Because most of the black fellas, I'm an original fella too, they weren't allowed to know about this too. It was a secret ceremony, and they didn't want people who didn't know the songs to get in the way. So he told me that second part is equally important. They've got to get that right. And then here comes the bad news. He told me when that ceremony takes place, the elders can call the rock up, and they call it something. They've referred to it. They call it the magic box. That was the word we were given, because that's what they called it. They said the problem is they can turn it on, but they can't drop it into gear unless other people around the world join that ceremony at that time. And I was given a number. And I heard the number, and I'd heard the 2%. I was like, gee, those two numbers don't go well together. And he said, no, that's the trick. If there isn't a certain number, and I know the number down to the north, I know exactly what the number was, but was never allowed to say it, and I didn't. And I looked at that and thought, we got no chance. We're not going to make this. Anyway, our job was basically that these different elders approached us to get this story out. So we did. We started telling people in our presentations over the last 5 years, and we warned them what the elders told us will happen. This is what they told us, that in the years preceding this and leading up, there would be a pandemic, and there would be talk in the last year of warfare, and there would be warfare between the great nations on this planet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for those who think this isn't the case, for 5 years we've been telling people this is what we were told. The elders, be they the Hopi, all of them knew this was coming. This is coming from all the indigenous people around the world, this change. And as you probably know, the Mayans told us there would be two roads to choose. The Hopis call it the fast-flowing river, don't they?
They do, yes.
Yeah. And we actually rely on those prophecies, particularly the Hopi are the keepers of the prophecies, and they talk about the blue Kachinas, the two brothers, and we've got pictures of them appearing. All of these things have happened. So off we go. Our job is to drum the numbers up. So we'll cut through a lot of this now. We did a lot of presentations around the world over the next 5 years, and I think they went into the hundreds. And it turned out that the number of people who were involved on that ceremony on the 21st of December 2020 was 10 times greater than the number we were supposed to get. It ran somewhere between 15 to 20 million people around the world at that specific time. were joining in ceremony. This is the largest communal meditation aimed at a place that has ever taken place on this planet. So, what happened on the day? And that's what I want to get up to now, because this is a huge claim to make, that this is going to be a seminal part of the Earth's history and the world's history. On that day, on the 21st of December, you've got to understand one thing, ladies and gentlemen. On that day was an alignment of Jupiter and Saturn and the summer solstice at Uluru at 7:32 p.m. That was the seminal time that this was supposed to take place. Now, we were at Uluru at that time. We were invited. It was quite funny because I said, I'm going to go there, because I said, you've got to take the rocks. You guys were talking about the rocks before. The rocks must be part of this ceremony. I thought, okay, it's going to cost us a lot of money to go to Uluru, but we'll go, and it's going to cost us about $5,000. Then about 5 days after we agreed to go, some people rang us up. I think it was, what were their names again? Mick and Catherine Hand. They were doing a ceremony at Uluru on the 20th, the 21st and 22nd of December. And they invited us to speak there. Wouldn't pay for our accommodation and our flights. And I thought, oh my God, we'll take it. So we did. We got there. I knew about 300 people there, and they all knew about the ceremony. Now, all sorts of weird things happen in the background, but I don't want to get involved in that, because people tried so many different ways to destroy the ceremony. And that includes the Australian government. And I'll give you two examples of what they actually did on the day before, because they knew we had the rocks there. And what actually happened was, on the day before, we were at that actual conference, and the fellow that runs the resort at Uluru came in and said, we've got a letter from the Northern Territory government, which is part of the Australian government, because it's not a state, it's a territory, and Jetstar. And they've sent this letter. And what they've told everyone there was to leave. To leave. What they said was that anybody that came from Sydney will be locked down now. Now, you've got to understand, that particular time in Australia, we virtually didn't have COVID. And there was one part of Sydney, the North Shore, that was locked down, but the rest of Sydney, you could travel anywhere you wanted in Australia. But strangely enough, wasn't announced in any news release, it was decided then and there that just where we were alone, anyone from Sydney had to leave. And what they said was happening was tomorrow 50 police were coming, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yep. They were going to come and they were going to interview everyone from Sydney. And about half the people there were from Sydney. None were from the North Shore of Sydney. In fact, one of the speakers was, and he didn't come. But everyone else was there. And they were told they had to go to their rooms and lock themselves inside in the meantime. And anyway, further on, they also said this Jetstar, which is part of Qantas, said they will be flying up one plane in the morning empty. And everyone from Sydney's got to get on it and leave. Okay? And that would mean basically that the ceremony we were going to do with the people there couldn't happen. So everyone's in panic mode. I went to a local takeaway shop and they had a sign up there. If you're from Sydney, we will not serve you. Ring us. We will leave the food at the door and knock and run away, because they could have the thing that we don't talk about. They were told that. And I was talking to some of my friends who were there, and they were freaking out. They didn't know what to do. And one woman came up to me that afternoon and she said, I've been here for a week. My children are in Sydney. And what they were saying is that if you don't get on that plane, you'll be in lockdown for 2 weeks at Uluru, which is $800 a night, and you've got to pay for it. You have to pay for it. And she said, what shall I do? I won't have Christmas with my kids. I said, man, get on the plane. Get on the plane. And she did. And about 50 people from Sydney did. Now, that night, the people from Sydney, we couldn't go and visit Shane and Annie, could we? No, we could, because they were from Sydney. That night, they all locked themselves in, and in the morning, guess what happened? The people who didn't get on the plane at 8 o'clock, they went to the restaurant and they ate. And they were wandering everywhere. And guess how many police came? Not 50, but 4. And Evan, you saw them, didn't you?
Yeah, they were underneath a tree for shade, playing on their mobile phones.
But didn't they get 4 people who got tested?
Yeah, 4 people had
The flu.
the flu or cold actually.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, well, we've got to go get tested just in case," and they were negative.
Now,
That
they
was
were,
it.
they were told that they were going to come and drag them in there, test them and lock them up. In the morning, they were wandering around the countryside. And at 8:05, after that plane from Jetstar had taken up, there was a notice put up on the board. What Jetstar said yesterday about the cancellation of flights, been changed. They're all flights as usual. So this was the last attempt to stop this ceremony. And let me give you a little bit of background information. Did you know that 6 hours after the ceremony took place, the Pentagon announced they were going to investigate the potential of UFOs? I believe that relates to this. So we're now set up what's happened. At 7:36 or 7:32, I took 300 people out to an oval. We didn't go to Uluru because it was locked out. We knew that. I set the 80 rocks that we'd taken there in formation, and we did meditation. And we did it for about, from 7:32, we went for about 20 minutes constant, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
I ran the whole thing. I gave them all the charcoal on their foreheads. We did the meditation. And Evan, what was your reaction to that?
Well, I decided, I had this voice in my head and said, "Put your hands on the ground," because we're all sitting on sitting down, and I put my hands down on the ground, and I was just so lucky that it was the only grass in the whole area because it's like a football oval, but there was a bit of a dirt patch there. So in my hands went, and within about 10 seconds, my arms began to shake, and I could feel this pulsing going through the earth. Now, it was noticeable enough for everyone around me to look at me going, "What's going on?" I went, I don't know, I just feel something on the earth, and my arms are shaking, and then they all started to put their hands down as well, and off we went.
And this was happening all over the group of 300. I saw plenty of people put their hands up in the air and said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm shaking." The whole of the earth around was actually shaking. Now, this sounds bizarre, but what I want to share with you now is the after responses, which are up on our website. Okay, so I'm going to make some amazing claims, because after that 20 minutes, I thought to myself, okay, we've done the meditation, but I want science and empirical proof. What have I got? Seriously, guys, I had nothing, except these people said I felt it. Well, that's going to work well for the mainstream press. They'll love that. So I'm sitting there thinking, what's going to happen here? How am I going to prove this to people? We've got 15 to 20 million people meditating. They want proof. What have we got for them? Then it poured in real, actual proof of something that happened at 7:32. And what I'll do is I'll just go through some of the things that happened. Number one, we got from, I think it was from Omar the next day, the Schumann residence readout of December the 21st. And lo and behold, at 7:31, there's 2 ways of reading this, and this comes from Ukraine and Russia. The Schumann resonance was working at 0.3. At 7:32, it increased 100-fold to 32, and then stayed from 32 to 36 for the next 4 hours while people were meditating, then dropped away completely and went back to where it was. And I looked at that and thought, well, that tells me that maybe that meditation worked, but can I be specific and say that it hit Uluru? It just may have been an influx of really good thinking and positive thoughts that have just emboldened the whole earth. I haven't got specifics, but then we did, didn't we?
Yeah, we got several specifics.
We got several specifics.
One was a group that we weren't with.
No.
And they were actually viewing Uluru from a viewing place.
They were filming Uluru,
Yeah.
and they didn't see what was on the camera until the next day, and then sent it to us straight away. Because at 7:36, and ladies and gentlemen, we've got the video, it's on our site, and we can show it to you. At 7:36, they're filming Uluru, and all of a sudden there's this massive white flash that covers the whole sky but does not touch the rock. It didn't cover the rock at all. And you can see it. It only lasts for half a second, doesn't it?
That's right.
And it just covers the whole sky. And it's like at 7:36, that rock, that magic box, which is what the elders called it, exploded. Now, our understanding is, from what we've been told, and we can't prove it, crystals, most likely from the Pleiades, were placed inside that rock for this event, which is what all the aliens call it, the event, if it was needed, and it was. So now we've got something a little bit more interesting insofar as we've now got an explosion taking place in that rock 4 minutes after the meditation has started around the world.
But there's more.
But there's a lot more, because when we were doing this, quite a few people from overseas would say, oh, I believe a UFO is going to be there, and they're going to be there, and that'll be the ultimate proof. And I said to all of them, I sincerely hope not.
Because then it makes it really easy for people that don't believe that all of a sudden go, oh, I believe now.
Oh, the humans are right. I'm going to hug trees now. Yeah, I'm going to be part of this now because I've been given proof I can't fight. Therefore, I now believe. I never thought this was ever going to be like that. It had to be, we had to make a leap of faith. But what we got was the second best. What we got is a person, again, not in our group, that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is legally registered as being blind. That's the film person here, so don't blame them for what they did. What actually happened was, at 7:32, I've got to give a backdrop for a sec. When I was setting the rocks up, while I was setting the rocks up, this massive black cloud came above us and started to rain on me while I'm setting them up. This is in the desert. I thought, oh my God, what are the chances it's going to rain in the desert when this is on? So I set the rocks up, and then when I finished, two birds flew over twice, and I knew they were in the right formation. We did the 20 minutes meditation, and when we stopped and looked up at the sky, it had changed completely. And we got film of it again, ladies and gentlemen. You can see it. The clouds had turned into this rainbow of colors. Every possible color you could think of was wrapped into this cloud. And the most important part was, we got film of this. You'll see that it's past sunset, and on the distance you can see a washed out gray. That's the horizon and the color of the sky, of the down below. But the cloud had in the middle of it the deepest blue I've ever seen. I call it Pleiadian blue for very good reason. Right in the middle. Around it was purple, was red, was pink, was yellow, every color you've seen. We asked the Uluru security guard, head security guard, who was standing there like that, and said, have you ever seen that before? She said, no way. And everyone there was just looking at the clouds saying, what is this? It's a sign. Well, the legally blind man was with his two kids about 30 k's from where we were, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Driving, and he stopped his car, got out, and he's got one eye that works a bit, and you could see it. Even anyone could see it unless you're completely blind. He started filming the clouds. He didn't know the UFO was there, and they didn't see it for a couple of days, did they?
No, they didn't see it until they started looking through the film, which was actually a couple of months later.
It was like a couple of months. It was just laying there.
They went through it about 3 months afterwards and went, oh, wait a second.
What's that? And all of a sudden, when you look at this film, you'll see it 3 times, and it's making its way towards that blue patch, right, in the middle. And you're seeing this thing moving like this, ever so slowly, doing about 20 or 30 k's per hour, directly above Uluru. Now, the critics have said, oh, it's a plane, it's a helicopter. Well, we did research on that. We got the aerial map for the whole of Northern Territory at 7:36. And there is one plane flying from Victoria to Darwin, and it's 400 kilometers to the west, and we were looking in the opposite direction. So it wasn't a plane. Someone said it's a helicopter. We checked that out. We went to the helipad, and we know the names of the people who got on the last helicopter that landed at 5 o'clock. Now, if it was a plane or it was a helicopter, and there we are sitting in the middle of the desert, 300 of us, and there's Uluru over there, don't you think we would have heard the engine noise? We didn't hear one, did we, Evan? Because it wasn't there. So what was flying in the air, and by the way, it's against the law to fly above Uluru. So what was flying in the air was not a plane, it was not a helicopter, And if it was either of those things, which it couldn't be, they were breaking the law. And here's the other point. 10 minutes later, it got dark. So where are they going to land? Because the airport's shut. Oh, we did have one group that told it was drug runners, didn't we?
Yeah, in the desert. And yeah, all the communities out there were locked down.
All the Aboriginal communities are locked
I
down.
don't know where you'd land.
And all the original people around there are shit poor anyway. So I don't know why the drug runner was running there of all places. So now we've got the one thing that we were told what would happen. But you know what? When you watch it and you can see it, and you'll find the first time you see it moving across, then he goes off and films something else. Then he comes back again on the second time and you see it for a second. Then he goes to the car park, and at the car park, there's a woman there, and she's holding up a mobile phone like this and aiming directly at where that thing is. But remember, this guy's only got half an eye that works. He didn't see it. But what's fascinating is another person did some work, and it disappeared the third time when it nearly got near that blue patch, and we didn't see it past that point. But one person got the film and slowed it down to 4 times its normal rate. On the 59th and the 60th second, there are 4 frames per second. She found that UFO on one of the 4 frames on the 59th second and one of the 4 frames on the 60th second. Then it's gone completely. Now, I would say to you, if that was something made in this planet, how can you get a plane, a helicopter, or any other flying device to disappear for 3 frames and reappear for 1, disappear for 3, reappear for 1? How do you do that? You can't. Now, let's talk about the Hopi prophecy about the change will be marked out by the blue kachinas. There'll be 2 blue kachinas, 2 blue patches. They call it, they will show themselves in the plaza from the sky and appear. Now, we had that blue patch directly above us. Now, there were supposed to be 2 brothers, one in the southern hemisphere, Uluru, one in the northern hemisphere, which is up where you guys are. And guess what? We got a picture the next day that came from Georgia in America of the moon. And inside the sky, there was this massive blue patch, just as intense as the other one during the night.
The return of the blue star Kachina, who is also known as Nenga, so who will be the alarm clock that tells us of the new way of life. A new world is coming. That is where the changes will begin. They will start as fires that burn within us and will burn up with desires and conflict if we do not remember the original teachings and return to the peaceful way of life.
So this is what the Hopi told us, that you have to return to the old teachings. They talk about that time after time. If you do not return to the old teachings, they tell you, you will disappear. They actually say it like this: it will be like a puff of smoke.
Upon the arrival of the twins, they will begin to vanish before our eyes like so much smoke.
Yeah, the twins have come. In the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, they appeared at exactly that time. Now we have...
David, I just wanted to toss this little tidbit out there. Since we're talking about synchronicities and this whole world thing, Yowie and all that kind of stuff, and I live in Savannah, Georgia, and I was here in Savannah, Georgia in 2020. Just a little connection there.
Wow, that is a connection.
I'll have to send you
We'll have to send you the picture for sure to show you, because that was sent to us from Georgia. That's amazing. Now, we got another picture that turned up straight away.
That was in
Croatia. And it was like a column, a massive golden column of light that was in the middle of the sky with a disc on top of it, and it went straight into the water. Now, that went viral through the whole of that area, and thousands were talking about it, and they all saw it for about 5 minutes. It went up didn't go up in Serbia, but it went up in Croatia
and Bosnia.
They put it up in the news, but they wouldn't put it up in this place it was. And they sent that to us straight away. We had that up, I think, the next day, didn't we, at the conference?
Yep.
We were showing people, look what's happened there. Now, those lights coming out of the sky or coming out of the ground, we got them all over. And by the way, the Hopis say, look for miracles coming out of the sky. That's in the predictions there too. So we were looking for this. And I think in Glasgow, it went on the front page of the Glasgow Herald, and they said, this is War of the Worlds. There were lights coming down all over the place. It wasn't War of the Worlds, it was the War of this world. Here it
The
is,
purifier will show us many miraculous signs in our heavens.
in the heavens. So,
That way we will know it is not a dream.
and they also talked about the red eye purifier showing himself. We've got pictures of that too. That's been sent to us too. So what has happened since then, ladies and gentlemen, is there's been this massive amount. We've got pictures of it happening in Australia and all sorts of stuff. In fact, the lights became so common at that time, a scientist said, I can explain it. Because the scientists will always explain it away. And they said that, you know what they do? They said, oh, what this is because these pictures you've shown us are from cold places, the air crystallizes at night and then reflects the lights that come from the lamps and stuff that are turned on at night, and then turns it into this thing that goes up like that. Yeah, we've got pictures of Perth in the middle of summer with this going place in the daytime. We've got plenty of pictures in Australia of this happening, and it's in our summer. Now, in our summer, we get temperatures of between 35 to 45 degrees.
The kind of temperatures that
Would kill you in England.
they're dying in England.
It's normal for us. We've been getting 45 and 50, and that's a bit tough for us. But the point I'm making is there was no crystallization. This was the brothers. Now, I've got to make the point, ladies and gentlemen. The Hopi have said the 12th hour has come. And there's a beautiful statement, I think, in one of the first ones we've got about jumping into the fast-flowing river, where they say, many will hang on to the shore, walk past them. Here it is.
Elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above the water. And I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate.
Yeah, they talk about the time up the stuff there. What's what they say at the start?
It's great and swift. There'll be those who are afraid. They'll try to hold onto the shore. They will feel torn apart and suffer greatly.
Yeah, so this is what this is all about. It's not something that's come from us. It's come from all of the Indigenous people around the world. We've been in contact with all of them. They're all saying the same thing, that what happened in Australia was the seminal part of human history. It's like the whole of our history has been running up to that point. Now, what we've been told is going to happen is this. Since that Schumann resonance reaction, then the Schumann resonance, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, has been peaking so often now, it's gone off the chart and it can't be measured for maybe a day. It's so high. What we're told is when the third ceremony, which is why I spoke about 3 before, that takes place at the end of this year at Uluru, where there will be an alignment of 3 planetary objects again, which is this time, there will be the solstice, of course, there will be a full lunar eclipse, and an alignment, we will be alignment with Uranus, which is the planet of sudden change. When that happens, this whole story comes to a conclusion. We rushed through this a bit. There's a lot more proof we've got. What they're saying is after that point, like what the Hopi said, the Hopi say you will look back to these people, they'll be like a puff of smoke. But I want to make the point, just very quickly, for those people who don't believe in Indigenous prophecies, can I also quote from Corinthians, which is from the Bible? And that's acceptable for the people who don't believe in Indigenous stuff. And this is what they said. You've all heard the bit, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. You've all heard that
Or
one.
the cheesemakers, if you're watching.
Oh, yes, if it's Python, it's the cheesemakers, right. Well, we've all heard that, but what we haven't heard is the sentence that went before. In the sentence that went before, they talk about the people who had the earth before the meek. And we're talking about the gates, the Suros, that mob. And what they say about them is very simply this. They say that they will leave, they will go. And what Corinthians says, you will look away, and when you look back, they will be gone. Because people have often asked us, so what happens next after the 21st of December this year? And I've always said the same thing. All the prophecies, all the Indigenous prophecies around the world speak about the fact that it's going to happen. But they don't tell us what happens next. But there are hints. The Hopi have said that it will be like smoke. And I've heard other people talk about rainbow-coloured smoke that comes around the world and touches everyone. And if they're not ready, they just fall to the ground. Now, we have actually seen that happen in Australia. An elder's done that with a stick they put in the ground in Darwin, and everyone collapsed. And he said, this is just preparation. What these 3 years are about is one thing. Those that want this not to happen have made this world hell on earth. And we told them this would happen. They are creating fear. And there's a beautiful line from June, which is, fear is the mind killer. And they're doing this deliberately now. And I warned people for quite some time, they would do this. And I said that this year they would be, we have told people they would talk this year about war with Russia, war with China. They will do this. They will construct all this to create a situation where the great majority of people will not ascend and not stay on this planet. That's what this is all about. And that's the stage we've got up to now. What we've now got, by our count, is 6 months for humans to prepare themselves and to prepare their mind. And what the Hoppy said is, if you do not embrace old teachings, you will not stay. That's very clear. It's been said by them. The Mayans warned, if you walk down that road, the wrong road, there would be no way back and you would leave. Now that you can find the Inuit have said the same thing. This is something that's gone everywhere.
Getting simple and returning to living with and upon the earth in harmony with her creatures, remembering that we are the caretakers, the firekeepers of the spirit. Our relatives from the stars are coming home where we are fared in our journey.
Our relatives from the stars are coming home to see how well we fared in this journey. They have been watching that day, and that we know, we've been in contact with them since. They are ecstatic because they weren't sure that we would cut the mustard. The whole of this experiment with us on this planet and them all coming here, there is an overriding theme behind this, an aim that they've been aiming for. And I can tell you that when this earth changes the end of this year, it's like a ripple effect. It will run throughout the cosmos. And ladies and gentlemen, the question that people should have been asking from the very beginning is not if aliens were here. That's ridiculous. The question should have always been why. And that is what this is all about. This is why they came. That's why they've invested tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years with us, watching us do the most outrageously bad things time after time after time, always hoping, well, when that day came, there would be enough of us to earn the right of passage to stay. So very briefly, because we do want to talk about Yowies in some detail, that is a thumbnail sketch of what took place, what happened after the event, and what will happen in completion. Because like I said, 3 ceremonies. First one at Uluru 2 years ago. We did one the end of last year, but that wasn't as important. The next ceremony is the most important ceremony of all, because if you're not ready on that day, you don't have to be ready even now. It'll be on that day. On that day, every soul on this planet will be judged by the worst judge of all, yourself. It ain't Peter at the gate that's going to make this decision. Your soul will judge you. If you're not worthy of staying, I don't want people to think, oh, you're going to hell. No, they're not. I want to make this point. I want to close with this one too. My understanding is around about 15% of people on this planet will stay. Now, my question is, that's fine. I get that. And there's a pretty good chance I won't be here. But what about the person who was 15.00001% that was next one on the line, on the bus, but didn't get in? Are you going to tell me they are going to get the same punishment? And I will use 2 words because they're easy to use, aren't they? Mm-hmm. I could use 3. I could say Gates, Suros, and Epstein, couldn't I? And I'd still be safe. No. My take is this, that person who just missed out by this much is short by one deed, one thought. And in their next incarnation, which will not be on this planet, which is now no longer a kindergarten, but a university, they'll go somewhere else where it's still vibrating at the low level, and they'll get that right, and they'll have the right to come back. For others,
it might take a bit longer.
Well, I'm thinking forever and a day. So I don't think they're ever going to come back. But this is what this is about. And if you go even to all the scriptures They talk about 1,000 years. This is a common theme that is not just indigenous. It's everywhere. This is part of our thinking. And what I find interesting is many people are saying today, I feel like there's a change coming, but I don't know what it is. Everything's changing. Well, Mesref, our guide from above, said this is the greatest gift we've ever given humanity. And I was talking about COVID at the time. He said, this is a gift because you can embrace this and not fear it and come above it. And then you will ascend because you're starting to get above the lies and the fear that they're creating. Yeah. So therefore, he said, the better the gift, the harder it is to earn it. And that's what this is about. So ladies and gentlemen, that's about the story of what comes next.
Let me just say quickly, that is what the Sasquatch people just were, have been teaching me, no fear. And I'm getting energy from them right now. They're confirming it. This is what they are coming, where there's so many Star Nations and the Sasquatch race and whatever coming and teaching people to get prepared for what's happening. And I'm getting all lit up with, like, they light me up with energy kind of stuff, but that's what they're doing. So it makes a lot of sense. And
the aliens have got some interesting stuff to say about the Sasquatch and who they are, and the fact that they've got, like, we'll talk about that next, of course, because we've got our dealings with it, and then we've been in contact with Leah, one of the people who works in our group. She's in constant contact with one of the aliens that's on the council that makes all the decisions about everything in the universe, and they've got very specific information about Sasquatch. And saying before, we work with quite a few elders around here. One in particular you guys have mentioned, it was Donnie. And we had him on recently talking about that. And it's very clear to me that, in fact, it's beautiful. I did ask Mesref, what is the thing you most admire about the Yowies, the Sasquatch? And he said one word. He said their humility. Yes. And we'll talk about that some more. But he made it very clear to me that the Sasquatch, or Yowies, we call them Yowies here, are more intelligent, more in tune, and none of the Sasquatch or Yowies will have to sit for this test. They passed it so long ago, it's not funny. They passed way back, and they just watched us, and they don't trust humans. They don't dislike humans. They just don't trust them. But aliens, they detest aliens. They can't stand them. And we'll talk about that soon enough, I'm sure.
The Sasquatch are reaching out to certain people, though, that they think are at the stage where they can listen, and, like people like myself and Beans and you guys, obviously. There are certain people that, if they're ready, they're teaching them. That's a fact. Yeah.
That's
so definitely. So just explain it before you move on to that. Explain it for the audience. And I think I'm pretty sure what you're going to say or whatever. But you said return to the old ways. So what is your interpretation of the old ways that we have to return to?
Okay, it's not living in a teepee, and it's not living on a lean-to, because I'm not going to be part of that. I'm sorry. I want to play my music, and I want to live in some degree. I'm used to it. I'm sorry. I can't go back to wandering in the bush. So it's not that. You've got to understand that. It's not that. It's more to do with what one South American country did when they passed a rule called El Pachamama, which means that every decision that's made, if it doesn't benefit the environment, it doesn't get passed. It's that simple. We do nothing that competes against nature anymore. Everything we do, if we've got smokestacks with crap pouring out of them, that is not the way. If we're harming the air, we're harming the water. If we are not living with nature, that is the one, living with nature. Like I said before, when I said, if there was a big UFO there, everyone would start going hugging the trees. You don't need a UFO for that. Go and bloody hug the trees now. Yeah. Because they've got an entity inside them. They are more aware than we are. Hug the rocks, hug the trees, and walk with nature like a rainbow, where your foot just barely touches the ground. It's a time where we live with nature, because for the last 6,000 years, we've been in constant competition with nature. And because we fought nature, guess who else we fight? We fight ourselves. Because if we don't understand nature, then we don't understand ourselves and we're in conflict with everything. So what they're talking about, what the Hopi speak about, what all the Indigenous speak about, and I'm not even talking about the Druids, I'm talking about all the people who are of the old way, they come back. If you want to look for God, pick up a rock, look at a snail, look at a tree, because the original people, our people, the Australian original people, we believe the spirits are everywhere. And
Yes.
everything you see, they see. Everything you say, they hear. There's nothing that can be escaped. Old way, if you broke a law, any law, old way, the elders will be sitting around and a bird would come. There'd be a sign in the sky and they would know, and they would come up to that person and say, you've done this, haven't you? And of course, you'd have to admit that you have, and then you'd be speared or punished. I'm not, by the way, no, I'm not going for spearing either. That's out. But what I am saying is you have to understand that every step you take, Shakespeare was right. The world is one massive stage and there's an audience out there and they're called the spirits and they're watching everything we do and they clap or they boo according to what we're doing. And at the moment, we're not getting much applause and we're getting a lot of the other. So that's what this is about right now. It's about understanding that from this point on, when this change comes, everything we do, we must say, would nature approve? And if the answer is no, then it's obligatory. Our parliament, which will be people sitting around a fire, you have to sit around nature when you do this, and it'll be the circle. When decisions are made, the mother comes first, and everything else is daylight second. That's how it's got to be. That's what the Hopi are telling us. And remember one thing, ladies and gentlemen, all Indigenous people on this planet have one particular skill to bring to the mix. And the Hopi skill is one thing. They are the keepers of the great prophecies. All of their prophecies should be taught in every school as a fact because they're real and they're true. And guess what? Right now, the fast-flowing river is flowing. The Mayans speak of the two roads. They're there. You've got to remember, when 2 or 3 years ago when this started, man, it wasn't as divided as it is now. Now it's utterly divided. So this is what this is about.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing before you get on to the Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah.
They've taught me like the whole core of their lessons speaks to exactly what you're talking about. They have taught me that we are all connected, all one, all connected. Love is the foundation of everything. Love is the strongest force in the universe. No fear, which they've given me. No judgment, and no division. And that kind of speaks to what the change is going to be, I think.
Yes, it's exactly what the change is going to be. Everyone that stays will be working with everyone else in equal, like original people. When you were born, what happened was when you're first born and they ask, what's this child going to be? They say, oh, we don't know. We have no idea. And then I read a story in 1962, an American guy came to Australia and lived with the original people, a group of living pretty well old way. And he told me of the ceremony when the child finally gets the rest of their life. And what happens is the grandmother watches the child. When the child is about to walk, they call the whole tribe in. They create this circle around the child. And when he or she first walks, she does 3 steps. And after the 3rd step, they pick the child up and they put the child down. And everyone looks at those 3 footsteps. And they look at those 3 footsteps. The first time you stood upon this earth with the mother, and they say, oh, look, it's going to be a singer. No, an artist, a tracker, a hunter. And they will work out from the first time you stand on the earth what you will be for the rest of your life. Now, whether you're a singer, an artist, a tracker, you are all equal. And that's not here today now. If you're a lawyer or a solicitor, an accountant, you're incredibly rich and you're above the hoi polloi. And if you don't have a job, you're crap. It's that simple. That's how the world works now. That won't work anymore. The cleaner will be as important as the doctor. Everyone will be equal and everyone will do a duty that serves the group and serves nature. That's what the future will be. Yeah. I mean, look at the Sasquatch or the Yowies. When Mesrith called them humble and had humility, they don't carry any cars. They don't wear clothes. They just walk with nature. And think about this. What did the original people do after they gave away technology, probably 15,000 years ago? They threw away their writings, they threw away their books, they threw away their everything, they threw away their clothes, and they became naked sadhus like the Indians did, like the Hindus did. And they walked on the earth and became spiritual masters. That is our future. You see, the most important part of this is what people don't realize, and we're lucky. I got initiated by, I think, the greatest elder in Australia, if not the world. Now, he was a guy that disappeared in front of myself and Evan and Graham Hancock and Graham Hancock's wife, Santha. He disappeared in front of all of us and did it as a trick, a party trick. He has done, I can think of at least 7 different miracles that you would say, oh, that's what Jesus does, or that's what one of the great sages done. And what Kano told us about the stuff he did, he said, what do I do? Every human on this planet can do. There's no special tricks here. What I do, when somebody asked him the day after, they came after me after he disappeared in front of everyone, and Graham Hancock, for the first time in his life, I swear to you, he couldn't speak, could he, Evan?
Yeah.
Now, that's unusual for Graham, because Graham can talk underwater. He could not say a word. And some of the people, they came up and said, ask him how he did that. And I looked at him and said, you've got to be joking. I'm not touching that. I'm not going near it, man, because if I ask him, he's going to ask me another question, and I won't be able to answer it. But someone did the next day. They came up and said, how come you disappeared for 30 seconds in front of 12 people? How did you do that? You know what he said? That party trick. He said, I just stood behind the curtain. Can't you see it? There it is there. And the guy looked and said, I can't see anything. He said, well, you'll have to look harder because it's there and it's for you. That is what our future is going to be. That's what we're being offered. You see, why did they come here? Why did they get so attracted by humans? By the way, if you look at Homo sapiens, they've now found 18 different hominids. Our skull size ranks 7th. We weren't the smartest. Homo sapiens sapiens. Sapien means wise twice. Whenever anyone repeats themselves time after time, you know they're lying. We're not the smartest. We never were. We never were. But we were the magicians. You look at the stories about Merlin, Nostradamus. It's in all our history. It was real. And then it got taken off us. They took the magic away to disempower humans. This was our skill. And this is what drew those from all over the place to come to us because of our magic. And then we lost it. And that was our mistake. But now this is the deal. Here's the payback. There's a reward here. If you stay, you get your magic back. That's the one part I can guarantee you.
It's already happening to people. It's already happening to people.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point.
It's already happening to people who are going to move on.
Exactly.
Not move on in the 2% that we're talking about.
Well, let's call it 15. I'm going for 15. Man. We can't run the world with 2%, man. It'll fall apart. We need more bums on seats. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We've got to get more people here, man. Otherwise, I don't want to go wandering through the bush, man. I want to still live here. I want to have properly generated power. I want to do this properly. So that's why we're here. We're mainly doing this. I'm doing it for selfish reasons, man. We've got to get more people here. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people are sensing and feeling it. A lot of people are saying to me all the time, I can feel the change. And they don't know about this. They can just feel it. And I think, well, if you're feeling the change, you don't need any more guidance. Just go with it. Yeah. But remember, there's a part to this. It's a leap of faith. I can't give you absolute empirical proof that this is going to happen. I've got to be honest. When we did the first ceremony, we did hundreds of presentations to millions of people, and on every occasion, we always said, maybe. We're not convinced it's going to happen. We said that every time. We never once said it's definite. And sometimes we said, look, I don't think it is going to happen. There's so many things going on that are wrong, which I won't talk about. And you know what I love about this? Those 15 to 20 million people that meditated on a maybe. They didn't meditate on a definite. They meditated on a maybe that it could happen, that they could send their energy to Uluru and it would basically wake up all the ley lines on this planet, which it's done. Yeah. They did it on a maybe. Now we're going to give them another maybe. This maybe is, do you want to stay here? Well, this is what you've got to do. You've got to become, and the Hopis have said it, and we're going to keep using it. You have to embrace the old teachings. And if you don't, get off the planet. There's no room for you. You have to leave.
Well, there's something going on. Just my experiences with the Sasquatch or whatever have been so dramatic and so spiritual. I mean, there's something special going on, and I know I'm not the only one, obviously. And you know, another teaching. I mean, we humans, we are so full of ourselves. Like, we put ourselves above everything, and that's why we disrespect everything else. When I'm in that perfect state and that perfect vibration that I was when I got this thing called the Love Zap, which gave me like a big download of all of this kind of information, I was. You don't put yourself above an insect or anything, a rock, anything. You're just, it just is. We are all part of the collective. That's what we have to get back to.
Yeah. Mesmer told us, don't put yourself above a tree because you've been a tree. Don't put yourself above a rock because you've been a rock. You have an incarnated in all different forms and shapes of energy. They said you humans have no idea what life is. You don't understand what life is. Life is everything, everywhere. Everything is alive. And by saying that there isn't, he said, you are dying by doing this. This is our way of healing ourselves. And they're part of this equation. And of course, that's...
Yeah, so mate, I don't know if it's going to happen either. But you know what? I think it's time. And the other thing is, I know something's happening. That I'm sure of.
Well, I look at it this way, mate. I look at it like this. I look at the road they're offering us. Warfare, pandemics, new diseases they make up every second day and give them new names, and I'm sure they exist. They make them. Fear.
Yeah.
When I'm walking down the street, someone looks at me and says, do you have a disease? Shall I walk on the other side of the street? Yes, I probably will. Can I shake hands with you anymore? No, we don't shake hands. That's not right. All that stuff is the path they're offering me, and I don't want that path. And if it turns out the other path doesn't exist, I don't care, because I still won't walk down that path anyway. If it means I'm just going to walk down a path of nothing, I'll take that rather than taking what they're offering me, because every day I turn on the news and all I ever hear is negativity. And they do that for a reason. They do that so that people never get out of this morass of negative thoughts, negative actions. And even a lot of my friends are aware, are ringing me up telling me, oh, Trump's going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and this is going to happen. I'm thinking, you've missed the point. It's got nothing to do with people anymore. The planet's running this show now. Forget names and go back to what the Hopi said. The Hopi never said, follow a person. They said, follow yourself. And when they said to go into that fast-flowing river, they said, jump in on your own and celebrate with the people of there. And so these people who keep telling me, and they keep getting locked into all the bad things that are happening on this planet and how bad it is, and I'm saying to them, you're getting sucked in. You're not doing it, but you're now collateral damage because you're part of it, because you keep talking about it every day. They keep telling me there's going to be a person that's going to lead us to the promised land. It's not. The only person that can lead you to the promised land is yourself.
Steve,
and if you follow another person, you're wasting your time. Yes, mate.
Stephen, have you ever heard of the term the team inside out? You ever heard of that, team inside out?
No, I haven't. But
I heard about it this year. It was a lady who was getting a healing on a craft, and she was talking about this healing stuff, and she was saying thank you to the ET for doing the healing, and the ET says, we're on. She was talking about herself. She says, we're on the team inside out, and that. As soon as she said that, I understood what that means. And if you want to look at the team inside out, the first one you look at is the angels and the Creator. Because of, you want to know why? Because there's literally millions upon millions of people since 1970 who've had a near-death experience. They've gone up to heaven. They've spoken to the angels. They come back down, and their life is transformed. And they connect to nature, and they connect to each other. Okay, that's them. Then there's the ET, and the angels don't come out and talk about politics. The next one would be the ET people, right? Like what you're doing. You're talking about all this stuff, right? That's because the elders don't want to come out and talk about this stuff because they're on Team Inside Out. They work on the inside out of human beings. Okay, so there's the angels and the Godhead, right? Then there's the ETs, and of which there's at least 200 that are actively engaged in working on people. They take them on a craft, they upgrade their energy, they do healings. 1/3 of the people who go on craft get a healing. They change their consciousness and people come back, right? So that's Team Inside Out. And the third one would be like the indigenous people. All the indigenous people are like you're talking about. They're not just talking about doing a ceremony. They've been actively engaged in working on people from the inside out. You don't ever hear about them, but you hear about their wisdom from time to time. Like you've been talking about the American Indians, the Hopis, and the black fellows in Australia. There's so many people on the Team Inside Out. It's just astounding. All the people who do Reiki, all the people who are doing healing, all the people who are teaching meditation, all the people who are doing yoga, all those people are on this thing called the Team Inside Out. And I just wanted to say this because it's easy to get overwhelmed and discouraged thinking, well, that's just me against the world and against this evil. It's not just us. There is teamwork after teamwork after teamwork, and they're all on the same team doing the same thing, which is to awaken us, lift us up, touch our hearts, and connect us back to Mother Nature. And that's what the Sasquatch are doing, and as far as I can tell.
I think you're exactly right. Maybe it's time now we should get to talk about well, we call them Yowies here, if you don't mind if we go there, because they're part of this. They're part of this. And the reason they've turned up here, I'll explain that now. So what I'd like to do in the time we've got left is to actually talk about, now I want to make a point about this when we start. We do these online conferences. We've been doing for quite some time. We've got one coming up on Sunday, and the last one we did was all about 23rd. So, hey?
We're up to 23 now.
23, sorry. And they were all done based around this prophecy. We said we would continue doing this until December this year. Then we stopped. We did some before, leading up to the ceremony, about 8 before, and we've done another 13 since about how you get ready. And we're stopping after December because there's no point after that. But let's talk about, but in every case, we never actually did more than this. We would say Yowies exist, have always been here. There's not a black fella in this country that doesn't believe they exist, and it really annoys me that whites, all of mainstream society in Australia says Yowies are rubbish, they're not true. So I want to sort of, if I can now, talk about them because they are an important part of this equation. Our understanding is after the change, they will fully come out.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
The reason why the mainstream and the government and the controllers, the handlers, whatever, and people don't want us to know that they exist is because they're talking truth. They're trying to help us, and they don't want that out.
They're talking truth, and they're also doing the things that Kano does. They're doing exactly the same sort of things in disappearing. Everything Kano could do, he made that point, they can do too.
Yes.
So they're on the same line, and we've got to get on that line. So let's talk about how this happened at our place. Now, I want to go back to the very beginning. In fact, I want to go back to 1997 when we just moved on to this property, and we've been here for about 25 years now. It's a rainforest. It's the last, where we live was the largest stand of a subtropical rainforest on the planet. Where we live now, there are 2 stands left of about 200 acres and 150 acres, and we're living in the 200-acre stand of rainforest. So if Yowies are going to be anywhere, they're going to be here. Now, this starts in 1997.
Can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay,
Cool.
all right.
So,
Well, Evan's putting up a sighting in 1997 on our creek down the bottom. Our property runs down to a creek. It's a fairly steep property here, and there's a large creek down the bottom. And a Yowie was sighted in 1997, and there's an account of it there.
Okay, yeah, he was fishing with his partner at the time, made their way through the dense riparian zone to a secluded fishing spot, when an animal that looked like a cross between a wombat and a pig scurried along in front of us and disappeared into the weed thicket. It was a little strange, but we carried on to the creek bed that was rocky and several platypus active at the time.
This is the largest stand of platypus in Australia. It was at this creek, at this billabong here. So there's lots of fish jumping out of there. A great place for a Yowie to go fishing. Continue.
All
Evan.
right, we started fishing with a
Mhm.
crashing sound, something large breaking twigs and heading for us for the weed thicket. I advised my partner to jump on the water if a pig came crashing through, but the noise stopped about 10 to 20 feet away from the creek edge. It was hidden in the lantana thicket, that's everywhere, but I could see brown fur and definite reddish tinge, and what I believed to be the chest area. I could not make out a face, but the eyes were diamond-shaped and like looking into mirrors. I would say the creature was about 6.5 to 7.5 feet tall. When I was looking up, I saw the mirror-like eyes. I'm about 5'11". The chest area I saw the reddish fur, and it seemed to be quite broad as it was tall. The shaky hair was similar to a goat's, matted and discoloured. I felt fear, not that I was in danger, but to not approach the creature. After about 10 seconds of being semi-frozen, and my partner getting a bit worried, then it disappeared with little noise.
Go down the last bit.
Okay. If I had a gun, would I have shot it? I think not, as I believe the fear I felt was some kind of low-level telepathy that installs fear and clouds the creature's face, as the face was sort of in view, but all I could make out were these mirrors.
Now, I really want to factor in, I want to talk a lot about this fear part because I tried to do this as a scientist once this happened. So that was in 1997. We didn't know about that. Someone sent that to us. 3 years later, around the year 2000, where I'm standing now, where Evan's house is now, it's on a different part of the
I'll
farm.
show you some pictures.
Okay. Where that is there, see where that bush is there? There was this screaming noise that was coming out of the bush. And it was during the day. And I took my wife and Evan and my other son, Morgan, and we stood about 10 meters away. And we knew it was in there. And it's really weird what happened. I'll tell you what happened later on. But we sat there, well, stood there rather, and was making this noise. And I noticed it was making the noise like a real scream. And it seemed to me, and I've measured it, it's exact, that every time it made the noise, it seemed to be about the same distance in timing. It turns out it's exactly the same distance in timing. That's really important. Anyway, I'm standing there and I've got a tennis racket in my hand because I used to be a tennis coach and played on the circuit and stuff. And I've got the racket in my hand and my wife said, you're going to go down and see what's going on there. And I've got to tell you, what he said about fear, I had that same feeling, but not fear like I want to run away. And it overwhelmed me. And I've got a racket in my hand. I looked at the racket and then I heard the noise and I thought to myself, this racket and that noise, the racket ain't going to make any difference. I could have 20 forehands and 20 backhands, man. It's going to bounce off whatever that is and it ain't going to make a difference. So we decided not to go down and find out what the noise was. We decided basically collectively to forget about it. And we did, didn't we?
Yeah, it was weird.
We never spoke about it again. Honestly, you would think we'd say, oh my God, what's going
What was
on?
that? Let's talk
What
about
was that? What was
No,
that?
Just
We just said, okay. We walked away and said, oh, that was different. And then we went back to our things and we did nothing more. So I don't want you to think that we've come into this with a crusade. We were visited then and we just said, yeah, whatever. Okay, let's go back and do what we're doing before.
but then fast forward a couple of years.
Fast forward to about a month and a half ago,
Yeah.
no, maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And then it really starts. Okay. What's happening is this is late at night, about 11 o'clock at night, and I've been writing an article about Slater, and I just finished it up, and I wanted to watch some football just to relax. And it's 11 o'clock, and I'm watching the TV, and the house, it's in the middle of winter here, and it gets down to really cold temperatures, like about, in the middle of the night, it gets down to about 8 degrees and stuff like that. And during the day, it gets down to about 20, which is really cold. That's Celsius, by the way, which is about 64, 50, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We live in a rainforest. We don't like the cold. But there's this noise going on. And I think my TV's, something's going wrong. Maybe someone in the crowd is screaming because it was really covering everything. I couldn't even hear the commentary. And I thought the TV's broken, so I turned it off. But it kept going. Windows were shut. The door was shut. So I went outside. And when I went outside, I realized that it wasn't the TV. Something was screaming. And lo and behold, the first thing I thought of was 20 years before, it's the same bloody thing. And it was making this real screaming noise. And it made the scream. I'm not going to do it. I've heard a couple of people do it, and I'm not going to make the noise. I don't want to do it, please. It's really quite, I'm not going to do it. Simple as that. Anyway, I'm standing out there for 5 minutes and it's just doing it every 5 seconds, every 5 seconds, every 5 seconds. And it's about 20 meters away. Same fear. And then I don't know why I went inside. I went inside to get something. And when I went outside, I closed the door while it was in mid-scream and I just made a bit of a noise and it stopped. So I'm standing there, arms folded, no tennis racket. I knew that wasn't going to make any difference this time. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I knew it was 20 meters away, but where is it now? I'm thinking, because we're living in a rainforest. This is a proper rainforest here. There's no moon and you can't see more than 5 meters in any direction. I'm thinking it could be standing just there and I wouldn't know. So what I decided to do, because some people say we should have taped it or filmed it. You've got to be there, man, at the time. I just said, no, I'm out of here. I went back inside and locked up. But at exactly the same time that happened, Evan comes back onto the farm in his car. Would you take over, Evan?
Yeah, I pulled up to their little car park at the front, and I had, because it was winter, I had the heater on, the car was running, radio was on, right? I was listening to music on the way home. And I'm thinking, oh, this weird noise. I went, oh, maybe it's the fan belt. I always have winding fan belts with cars. It's my skill. I find cars that can have fan belts and are never fixed. So I thought, well, turn off the engine. I could still hear the noise. So then I turned off the heater because I thought, well, maybe there's a leaf or something stuck on the heater. And I went, no, okay, well, maybe it's the music. Turn that off. Could still hear it. And I'm like, okay, so it's nothing to do with the car. And it's outside from the car. And then I opened the door and got out and went, oh, well, you know, it's probably just some sort of animal. And then as I kind of went about 5 seconds in, I went, I've never heard that noise before. What? Huh? And then 10 seconds in from that, I got filled with that fear sensation that was overwhelming to the point where I had a few things in the backseat of the car because they'd been like a garden party. So I had, you know, a cooler and a few things. I went, you know what? I'm going to grab everything and make one dash to the house because it's like 100 meters or so, maybe a bit more. So I grabbed everything and power walked to my house. And then I was actually talking to someone in the car, Sarah, right? And I said, oh, we better phone her back because we got cut out because went into our estate and there's no reception. So I phoned her back and then she's like, what's that noise? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never heard it before. And she's like, you know, are your windows and doors open? And I went, yeah, they are. And she's like, I think you should shut them. And I'm like, yep, I think you're right. And that's where it gets even weirder. So she heard the noise through my mic that we're speaking through now.
3,000 k's away.
Yeah, she's over the other side of Australia, right? And we both had a weird, like, I don't remember having that conversation where she told me to lock the doors, the windows. That's just gone. She told me the next day. I went, oh, did we talk about that? And I know we had a conversation afterwards that got real muddled, and then we ended up just saying, look, let's pick it up in the morning. So what I think that is a slide I've got up now, which is called Infrasound. So it can fill you with the dread and the fear and uneasiness, memory loss, confusion. All of those things seem to happen. And then the next day, I remember speaking to her, and we both had the same symptoms. We both had aching ears, sore throat, disorientated, no balance, kind of. Yeah, and I'm filled with brain fog all the time. So off of that, so what I feel like that we both experienced was some infrasound sickness, which Sasquatch and Yowies can use. And that guy in the report in 97 talked about some sort of fear defense mechanism. I think it's like not that they're going to come and get you. It's more just
keep away.
Keep away, please. Yeah. They may even have a family. They may have their younglings around. You don't know. So I can imagine them being protective in that sense. So yeah, so that's what happened.
But then it began from there. That was like a beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So then
can I say something quickly?
Yeah, good play by all
They
means.
can
Yeah.
also use that. They can also give you an energy or an infrasound or whatever you want to say, although it's not audible like this, where they can remove your fear.
Yeah, we're going to come to that because there's more to it.
Oh,
We're
okay.
going to, oh yeah, that's coming. 'Cause this is like an introduction. This is him turning up the first time to say we're here. But
Okay.
knowing that I'm so scientific, they must have known that I wanted a shitload of proof before I'm going to start walking down this path.
So, what happened was it's off the side of the road, but it's kind of on the edge of the rainforest, right? We kept on observing this.
Yeah, look, this is what the story with this one's really interesting because we've seen this for 15 years here. And what happens is we're in a rainforest here, and 3 of the properties run onto the rainforest. The others are on the other side of the road. We're one of the 3 properties on the rainforest. And the whole time we've been here, there's people who've been growing mandarins and oranges, and we will always find them clustered 150 meters away on the edge of the rainforest. You'd find 15, 20 oranges in one spot, and everyone said, oh, the possums did it. Well, I actually did an experiment on this, and I can tell you now, the possums don't pick up 15 mandarins and walk 100 meters and decide I'm going to dine there. But that's what people said, and of course that was illogical.
Like, whereas usually when the animals eat it, whether it be fruit bats or possums,
They eat it off the tree.
yeah, and you'll see evidence of that. You'll see a skin or half an eaten fruit underneath the tree.
We've got fruit trees.
Or even on the tree sometimes when you go, oh, well, someone was eating it while it was still attached.
Yeah.
Or I've even seen wallabies crack open peach seeds to get the little sultanary thing inside. But you see that there, they don't then carry it hundreds of meters away to eat it.
Unless the wallaby got the 12 mandarins and then put them in their pouch when there wasn't a baby there, hopped across the road, then took them out and then peeled each of the mandarins and ate them. That's possible, but highly unlikely. So what Evan did was we spoke to Donnie, one of our elders, about that. He said, go and see if there are 7 there. And there turned out there were 7, and there's the 7 there. Then he said, go down the road a bit, you'll find 3 more. That'll be Orion's bill. And he found that too. So Donnie's in Tamworth, about 300 k's away, and he's telling us where the mandarins are. And we go and find them exactly where they're supposed to be. Evan's got a set of 7 up there, then he mapped them.
Yep.
So what we're starting to get is incidental evidence around there.
But then near that actual patch of mandarins.
Oh, yeah. It's the tree.
Is the tree. So I'll zoom in for you. That's the tree. So as you can see, healthy looking tree, right?
No.
And then you can even see that someone would have chopped some of the lower branches because of the road. But as you can see, it's resprouted.
This is right near the mandarins.
So
go closer.
We're going closer. So that scratch is 84 centimeters, right?
Yep.
And then it's that far off the ground. And then
that's over 6 foot.
Yeah, so there's some close-ups of the scratching. And then there's the top cut and the bottom cut. And then we've got the puncture. So it's like something's gone in and gone puncture and then scrap down.
That tree is a rainforest hardwood tree. You go and take your fist and try and bang into it and see what happens. You're going to end up breaking
So
the
the
fist.
puncture's about 3 centimeters into the tree.
Yeah.
And while I've got the slides up, I'll just show you a bit of what the area we're talking
Is
about.
that a stick they stuck in there in the tree?
That was my that's all I had on me, so I thought, well, I'll shove a stick in and then measure how far the stick goes in.
Oh, okay. Because I just wondered because it
Oh, whether
stuff like that too. So okay, you did that.
yeah, that was me just doing that. But this goes to show you the general area. So you can see there's a lot of greenery around.
And it runs further that way. It runs down to the creek and over the other side.
So then I've done a little map of all the different things.
Well, so let's just stop there for a second. We'll talk about some of the others now. Okay, now past that point, then they started to really kick it up. About 3 days later, I'm out the back there in the middle of the day and it starts screaming again. But this time it's about 1 kilometre away. Now, I wanted to make a point about the volume. Seriously, someone said it could have been an animal. And I said, yeah, it could have been. If they were carrying a portable Marshall lamp, had it on 10 and had a microphone in front, it could have been an animal.
I mean, we hear all sorts of strange animals.
We've been living in this rainforest now for 25 years.
Like, we've heard the fruit bats will walk over fruit, right?
Koala's making a hideous screaming noise.
Oh, like cute, lovable things. You should hear what they say. It is not nice.
Yeah, but nothing's got this sort of area. Now, here's where it gets interesting, ladies and gentlemen. What then happens is I hear the screaming taking place, and I'm thinking, hang on, I'm starting to listen to this a bit more. I heard it for a while. Then I had two more incidents that really pushed me over the border. It's called the banging noise and the rustling. Now, the rustling convinced me. The banging noise just pushed me past beyond anything. I went out. I started going out at night at 11 o'clock for obvious reasons. I'm thinking, hang on, that seems to be the time they're around here. And I went out there one time. I went opened the door and went out the back. And when I did, just down in front of me, 15 metres from where I was, we've got some lamandras, which is tall grass, about 6 foot high. And I heard a rustle of the lamandra, then two footsteps, 1, 2. Now, I've got to tell you, we live on volcanic soil. It's incredibly soft. And when you walk on it around here, you make footprints. It's really hard to make a noise on it. The noise of those two footprints was so loud that it bounced off our house and it was echoed.
Yeah.
Now, I figured out straight away, my God, I knew within an instant that those two footsteps, man, I could sit there and I could jump from 30 feet and land on the ground. You wouldn't hear me. But this thing just moved 2 steps from a standing still position, and the noise bounced off the house and continued that. So like an echo effect, like someone's recording it and making an echo chamber inside there. And I thought to myself, whatever this thing is, it weighs hundreds of kilos. Now, that really got me thinking, and it was close. And by the way, I got to tell you, I decided to go back inside again. People kept criticizing you, but you've got to be there first, man, until you work out what they're on about, because we still hadn't worked it out yet. Yeah. We had to talk to Donnie to get the full idea there. 2 days later, there's what's called the banging noise, and that's right next to the house, like 10 meters away. 2 nights later, I went out at 11 o'clock, and as I went out, I heard something smash against the tree that's right on the opposite property to us. And I went and looked the next day because I thought something's fallen down and there was nothing there. Donnie told me one way of announcing themselves, they get a branch and they smash it against the tree once. Well, I only heard that once. And we went and checked the next day, could find nothing. And by then, I thought to myself, whatever is out there is massive. And to pick what they picked up, you couldn't describe how loud the noise was of that branch or something hitting that tree. It was massive. Yeah. And we rang up Donnie. And this is when we decided we're going to do a show about it. And he told me, yeah, that's their way of letting you know. That's fine. We've got that. And then he said, but you've got to understand, and you guys were talking about this earlier, there are 2 types of yowies. There are the big ones that go from 6 foot to 15 feet. Then there are the esoteric ones that will give you their stories through dreams. And I know you spoke about one of them before.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to talk about next. Because what happened then was, I about a couple of days after, I think it's the banging noise, we've got the calls. That's right. The first one was I'm in bed at night next to my wife. Then I heard the grunt inside the bedroom. Not as loud as before, and it didn't feel as aggressive, because I've got to tell you, if you're laying in bed at about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning and you hear a voice in your bedroom, most people might get their stomach rolling and feel a bit fearful. But I didn't feel that. You know how before I told you I felt really fearful every time I was there? I felt nothing like that. I just said, oh, he's inside here. And he made the grunt once. I thought, well, okay, fine, it's there. I heard it. Don't worry about it. It wasn't me dreaming. It woke me up. It woke me up for sure. And then I heard it a couple of nights later. And I'm not going to go into details, but after that grunt, I got a dream. But that's my dream, and I want to keep that to myself because that's my story. I just want to give you the empirical evidence. And then comes the clanger. This is the final coup de grace. Okay, I heard the male voice twice. Then further on, and this one my wife was aware of too. We're both just laid down and we hear a female grunt. Now, this is where it gets weird because I hadn't fallen asleep. So I've opened my eyes. It's pitch black as usual, as it should be. I'm looking around, not feeling fearful because I know what they are now. Donnie's told me. And I'll tell you next why they've done this. And I can't see anything. Nor did I expect to. Nor was I fearful, because they can make noise to make you fearful or make noise to make you not fearful. That's the point I'm making here. But this is where it gets weird. I closed my eyes and they must have figured, not enough, we've got to do something else. So what they did was they turned on the main light in our house, in the lounge room. They turned it on and it shone right down the passageway into the bedroom. And all of a sudden I could see everything in our room. 3 seconds before I could see nothing. Now what I did was I thought, oh, I know what they've done. They've turned it on, but geez, I really want to go to sleep. I'll bugger it. I'll leave it. I thought, oh no, it's going to be on all night. It's going to wake us up. So I went outside. Now you would think if you're in your house on your own and someone turns on the light in another part of the house, you would take a stick or a tennis racket with you.
You would.
I didn't.
You didn't.
I knew damn well what was going on. So I went in there and guess what? The light switch is down. It's not up, it's down. It's been turned on. And I turned it off and went to bed. And that for me was when I gave up, because all the way through, I tried to rationally, by the way, I've got to explain something. For most of my life, I've been a teacher. I've been living in schools. And you know what schools teach you to do from the very beginning? Never to ask a question, but to memorize the answer. You are not encouraged to think in schooling. I've been a principal. I've been a head teacher in high school and primary school. I know what it's about. So therefore, I am conditioned to find a rational explanation. And they knew that. And when she turned the light on, that was her way of saying, give up. We're here. Like Mesrick has said, the family have moved in. They've told us they've moved in. They're here now. Now, let me explain why this happened. Because of the rocks we've got, and I work with the Raminjeri, and we're always going to put all the rocks on country so people can sit inside and meditate with them. That was always the rule. And then the government stepped in and stole the land off the Raminjeri. We're going to put it in, which was their land. And then a multi-millionaire gave us some land. And I won't go into details about that. 50 police came and arrested him. He's still in jail and hasn't been charged. He's been in jail now for a year. And it was told that that would not be happening on that land anymore. So twice we've tried to put it on country. And I asked the elders for permission to put the rocks on country here so people can come and meditate inside them. And we've had 86 people have been inside those rocks. And 83 of them got amazing reactions. And 2 of the 3 people that didn't get a reaction actually didn't even buy tickets. They were given tickets for people who were sick, and both of them were rude and insulted us while they were there, and they should have never come. But they should have come to show me that if you don't deserve these rocks, they won't give you anything. But the point is, Donnie made it clear. When did these Yowies come? Before or after you put the rocks outside? I said, after. He said, no, they're coming for the rocks. They know they're there, and they know what the rocks are doing. And what they're doing is they're moving in to an extent to protect us, to make sure we're being looked after. And the way they did this was, first of all, to announce their presence by screaming, by banging their feet, by smashing against the trees. And when that didn't work, they moved into the bedroom and started calling us time after time. And when that didn't work, they decided, well, bloody hell, I'll turn the lights on. And surely by now, this guy will get the fact we're here. Well, when the light went on, it went on in the house and it went on in my head, because after that, I said to myself, there is no rational explanation for the fact that 3 seconds after this woman grunts at me and I close my eyes, the lights are turned on. It has to be the same thing that made the noise.
Yeah.
Who's lost that?
Wow.
Wow.
Can I ask you something? That you
Brian,
consider?
did you tell her that his friend Donnie is watching us?
Yeah, Donnie's my friend. Donnie's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah.
Well, then you know that he knows his stuff about this. That's why we went and saw the expert, because I figured this is getting out of control now. And he told me about the psychic stuff. It hadn't happened then.
Yeah. Can I get you to consider something or think about something?
Yeah.
From my experiences, to me, this is an absolute fact. The Sasquatch, and I assume the Yowies, can give you any audible, sensory, or visual experience that they want. So just because you hear a great big loud noise or something, it may not be where you figure it is.
He told us that too. Yes, you're right.
They can. or for instance, there'll be 4 people. I'm getting energy confirmation from the Sasquatch. There could be 4 people or whatever walking along a path, and they'll hear like an earthquake, or like boom, something incredible happen, and 2 people won't even hear it because they can selectively give it to anybody they want. So just because you hear something heavy walking around doesn't mean that it's just they're giving you that experience. It doesn't actually indicate anything about them necessarily.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because yeah, it does. And Donnie gave us more information that I've got to share with you. He also told me, have you heard them make the hooting noise? And I thought, oh my God, we've heard that for 20 years here. We assumed it was an owl because every day here, some days you find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these hoots going on. And we just assumed it was an owl. So we did our research because I'm a teacher and that's the way we do it. And I looked it up and I found out there are 2 owls in Australia that hunt during the day. The northern pygmy owl and the northern hawk owl, but they're all found in Arnhem Land, not here. And they said if you hear an owl during the day anywhere else, it's considered a good sign. And they tried to explain the 2 reasons why you might occasionally hear them, that they were fighting over territory or they didn't get much food. Now, we live in the last stand of rainforest. This is the one place where there's plenty of food. But what he told me was that's them talking to each other. So what I did was I went outside for 3 days with a piece of paper, couldn't help it. I had to do this scientifically, and a stopwatch, very important. And what I found was every hoot, without exception, the next one is 3 seconds after. It never changes. And I checked all other birds. No, it doesn't happen. Then I started to listen more to their language. And then I started to hear after the hoot. Sometimes they had a suffix at the finish with something else that followed it. And after a while, I started to realize there's something at the front of each one of these hoots now. Then I realized it wasn't just one type of hoot. I'm up to 6. When you start to listen long enough, you differentiate between those. And there were 6 base hoots. And then I found 7 prefixes at the start and 8 suffixes at the finish that are different. And then I realized we've been doing work on first language with Slater. And he said the first language was made of 10 base words. And then the original people added suffixes and prefixes. And I'm thinking, this is the same thing. Yeah. This is where we got this language from. We didn't get it. They taught it to us. The Yowies taught us the sacred first language that was spoken throughout the whole world. And we've got proof of that, but I'm not doing that today. And I realized when I did this over 3 days, and I heard round about 1,500 hoots over those 2 days. Now, come on. If it was one owl, he'd be dead by now. He'd just be exhausted, laying on the ground with his beak open. I can't do this anymore. It went on all day, and then I started to learn more. I found that they never go above 6 hoops. Never. They never go above that. And during the day, in the middle of the day, most of them are 5s and 4s. But in the afternoon, it goes down to 3s. And when I heard 2s, and I've only heard 3 2s on 2 occasions, that was the end of the talk. And I started to think until I heard the 3rd one, that means I'm signing off. And the more you listen to it, and by the way, like Donnie said, there was one coming from over there, then there was one coming from over there and one over there. But one thing I did pick up is sometimes they were very loud because we've got about a 2 kilometre stretch of rainforest here. And sometimes they were quite soft a long way off. And I felt like they were communicating with each other, passing on information. But their conversations, unlike us, which is inside a room, they were talking over a 2-3K area to each other. And, you know, when I go and play tennis, now, over that way, I hear them. I hear them back in the rainforest, way back here. And the tennis, where the tennis courts are, is 2 Ks from the rainforest. You can still hear them. Their voice just runs everywhere. And the point I'm going to make is anyone that tells me that's an owl, I want you to go out and measure the owl hooting, and you tell me if every one of them is exactly 3 seconds apart each time. You tell me if that happens, and I'm going to tell you now, it doesn't.
I agree with everything you say because they can shapeshift into owls. ravens and other animals and whatever. And I've heard them talking as owls and like all that stuff. I mean, they have an advanced relationship with these animals. They could shapeshift into them. They could see through their eyes. And I have had experiences with owls or Sasquatch impersonating owls and other animals. So it's a fact.
Yeah, that's what we thought it was for so long, but that was what they were using for the whole of the bush there. And they've been using it since we've been here.
Yeah.
But we just kept thinking, oh, there goes the owls again. They never shut up. No, they don't. This is not right. There's no owls where we live that do this.
Yeah.
And they don't do it every day, non-stop. And that's what we're hearing. So what we started to realize when I put all that together, and by the way, 2 days ago, they were back in our bedroom again. What I think they're doing now is they've got past the first part, was the ones came from the outside to make us listen, to make us aware they were there. And they've done that. I mean, when she turned the light on, that was when I just put up the white flag and said, no, my rational mind's gone for a walk and it won't come back. You've now killed it. It just won't, it's not part of this anymore. And it's completely gone now. I mean, before this, I would have never said this before, but I use science all the way through. I was being empirical. I was recording information as it came in, and I kept trying to find ways to explain it away. But when the light went on, that was like it was symbolic. And I think they were saying, if you don't get this, man, we're out of here. We're going to give up on it.
Can I tell you a quick story about owls?
Well,
That will verify everything you're saying. This was an experience my wife and I had. And I'm not going to give you all the details, but I have a native drum that I play, and the Sasquatch love it because I'm putting out love energy and singing to them, and it's high vibrational stuff. So they loved it. I lost it. I had it returned to me. And I went out into the woods with my wife, and we were sitting on a pier. And all of a sudden, I'm playing the drum, and I heard, whoo, 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 whoo. And hold on, though. This is good. So, and my wife says, I don't think that's an owl. And I said, oh, I don't know. It sounds like an owl to me, even though I know that they impersonate owls. But I said, but anyway, we had about 2 more hoots as I'm playing. And then my wife said something really like, it was almost like saying, water is wet, don't you? Because with our understanding, it was so stupid. She said, they imitate owls, don't you? And I mean, we know they do. So that was like, why did he even say that? We know they imitate owls. But as soon as she said that, we heard it sounded like about 12 Sasquatch all around us going, yeah, woo, 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 woo,
Oh.
Like it was like for 15 seconds, they were screaming and yelling and whooping and talking and grunting. And it was just like, wow. As soon as she said that, so I mean, it's a fact that they utilize these animals, whether they're looking through their eyes or they shapeshift into them, and
You can also do trains and motorcycles and cars.
we've heard that. Yeah, they can. They're like robots. They can copy. Yeah, we've heard that. And Donnie tells us they can also speak language too, like English.
Yes.
I want to close. Can I close with one last part of this? It's on our last online conference, which, by the way, is still up for sale until we do our next one, because what we do is we do an online conference and people can watch it any time over the month. But I want to close with something, and I want to give you an historical background to the Yowies. I want to give you the story, and this comes from Mesrev, who is basically, it's like talking to an archangel. They know everything. And he told me about why the Yowies don't trust humans and hate aliens and where they come from. Because a lot of people think, they come from off-world. I want to make this point clear. They do not come from off-world. Mesrev said they are the first terrestrial bipedal beings on this planet. They are before us.
Yeah.
We come after them, not before them. And this is what they told us. They told us this experiment they did on this earth. They didn't do it on the earth first. They didn't want to come here because he said the elementals, which are them, they were there and they didn't want us there. So they went to Mars. And then Mars got blown up and destroyed, and then they brought it back here. Now, what happened from there was this. They came back here and they started this experiment using us, obviously, and different hominids and stuff like that. But As that took place, things started to work pretty well for a while. And Atlantis in particular, for a period of time, was literally heaven on earth. And the aliens mistook that time as being the event, because they knew it was coming, but they didn't know the timing. And because things for a while in Atlantis before the rings turned up was going particularly well, and that's a different story. And of course, we have the 3 Atlantean rings. We're not doing that today. But this is what happened. The aliens moved in to Atlantis, and they were living with humans like neighbors. But they moved in and asked permission from the Atlanteans to move in. But they did not ask permission from the Yowies and Sasquatch. Now, I've been told that the aliens were like neighbors, but the Yowies, before the aliens, they were walking through the streets of Atlantis, but they wouldn't have much to do with the humans, but they tolerated us. They didn't share much with us, but they put up with us. They didn't sort of hit us or hide from us, but they were very reticent to speak, and they just sort of kept away, didn't they? But they nodded. It was like, oh, g'day, how are you? G'day, I'm on my way. That's how it worked. But when the aliens came, we humans agreed to it, but nobody asked the Sasquatch and the Yowies. As a result of that, they kept away from us completely because we betrayed them to an extent by not consulting with them, because they knew we could communicate and they could. But when the aliens came, they thought, we never agreed to you coming. And Mesrith has said, they're scared of them. They don't want to go near them. They know that if they were to land near them, they would kill them, wouldn't they? Yeah. He said that. And as powerful as the aliens are, I want you to make this point. It's very important to understand that. As powerful as they are, as technologically advanced as they are, they do not want to hang around or deal with them. They just think their magic, remember what I told you before about our magic? They still have it, all of it. Yeah. The disappearing, all that stuff, they got the lot. And they said their technology cannot defeat the Yowie magic, so they just keep away from them. Often they will turn up when they do that disappearing trick that you guys have spoken about, and there are many stories. We've got them in our last Yowie conference where Sarah talks about the way they disappear. When they do that, they sense that disturbance, and they'll often turn up and say, oh, it's just the Yowies, right, we're out of here. They don't come down, man. They just want to check what's going on because they can sense it when the curtain is broken, right? But and like Donnie asked us every time they're there, are there Yowies there? And we said to him, mate, we're looking down on the ground. We're not looking up. We're so focused in where the noise is coming from. Donnie, I've never looked up ever. I just don't even think about that. When you hear someone smashing against a tree, you don't say, look up like that. You're looking over there thinking, what's around there? But he made it very clear, way more intelligent than us, way more magic than us, and they know the history of the world from the beginning because they were there. They are the beginning of everything. Yeah. And they are the ones, and I love the way that Mesrith said he loves their humility. Well, they're not egotistical. They don't care about clothes. They don't care how they smell. And people often say they smell bad. And I've always said to them, what do you think we smell like to them? And they sort of stop and think, oh, we'll be okay. And I said, oh, I don't think so. I think they probably think, but we smell just as bad in a different way. He said they don't care about anything except living with the planet the right way. And they're still prepared to teach us that, but they won't do that. And what did he say? Until we're prepared to listen.
Right.
And he said, at the moment, we are not prepared to listen, but after the change, the understanding is only the listeners remain. And then they will come out of all the different places, because in Africa, I think they're called stink monkeys, aren't they? Something like that?
No, south of USA's
skunk ape.
Thank you. Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. They've all got different names, right? They've all got different names. He said, they're here. And he said one other thing. He said, you think you were really intelligent humans? And he made a very valid point. He said, if you're that smart, how come you haven't caught one of them?
Well,
a very valid point, man. Everyone knows they're there. Sometimes you get a grainy picture because they allow it. He made that point clear. If they're being photographed, it's because they are allowing it to happen, not because you thought, oh, I caught them. No, they never get caught. They show themselves when they want to. And if you think you're tracking them, no, they're not. They're tracking you, but you won't see them. Someone said, sorry.
Can I add something here before I know you guys are about ready to go, and don't forget to put out your web address and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about etiquette. Okay, it's spiritual etiquette. These Yowies have been trying to let you know and to become friends with you for something like 20 years.
Yeah.
And they've showed up in your house. When a Yowie shows up in your house multiple times, it's considered etiquette to invite them into your house with agreements. So I recognize that you can come into my house, and you're welcome to come into my house as long as you don't scare me or break anything. Those are agreements. And then give them absolute. And this is about trust. If you're acknowledging that they're there and that you trust them to come into your house, right? Okay, that's etiquette number one. If you're having dreams, if you're having mind speak, if you're having understandings given to you by the Sasquatch people, that means that they are in your mind and in your energy being.
Yeah.
The second etiquette is, I recognize that you are in my mind and that you can come into my mind at any time. And I'm going to give you formal permission to come into my mind because I trust you as a brother. Those two things right there. Once you do that, then you're going to feel everything changes because you acknowledge them formally for who they are, and you recognize the trust, that there's trust there, because for 20 years they really haven't done anything but make noise.
Yeah.
And the benefits are, then you're kind of recognizing them as a brother, as a family member, and they're recognizing you as a brother and a family member.
Yeah, absolutely. And
That's exactly what Mimicry said, isn't it?
you know,
That's what Mimicry said.
I've witnessed all of the, well, not all of them, but a lot of the abilities that they have. That it's all true. I've actually seen them materialize out of thin air. They, all these things, all these abilities, they are more evolved than us. They are teachers, and I agree with exactly what Beans is saying. Is that they are reaching out to you, and they want to. They've got message for you, and like he says, accept it and greet them, and open yourself to it. And it is happening, but it'll happen even more so when you do that.
Yeah, I like the second piece of it. I will do that. That second part about making a formal declaration of an invitation to sort of be part of this and then give information. It makes a lot of sense.
Like what I do is, hi, I'm Brian.
Yeah.
Or I just what I say to anybody, because I'm kind of like an ambassador for Sasquatch, even though that sounds high and lofty. I'm not saying it with ego. It's something they've told me. It's just that we're all here for different reasons, and that's what I'm doing. But they, I suggest to anybody, just say, hi, I'm Stephen, and I'm open to meeting you. And, I'm open to meeting you.
So can I close with this? I've got one last thing I want to show you guys.
Yeah.
I want to show you a picture, and I'll tell you a story. And I'd like to close on that because it's a good way to finish this. And I'm going to hold the picture up now. Can you guys see this skull?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was found in Australia.
That's massive.
Well, it is massive. It says Cow Swamp, showing a massive archaic features of this group of robust early Australians. The burial is 13,000 years old. I want to close with a little story about these guys. This sort of being was found in Lake Mungo. It was dated at 50,000 years, and it had a skull thickness of 19 mil. Ours is 2, right? I'm going to hold up one I've got here. I'm going to hold this one up here. This one is 15 mils. We've got our own. This one is part of one of these ones now. We've got quite a few of them. Now, I want to tell you the story with that one. That was at a place called Cow Swamp. It's a good way to finish this story. They found these archaic Homo sapiens, and they said, oh, they're related. Now, here's the problem. They've got one that's 50,000 years old. These ones are 13 to 9,000 years old, and one in Cossack that was found is 6,000 years old. Now, the problem is they said that Australia was unpopulated 50,000 years ago when some gracile Homo sapiens from Africa sailed here, and then they started the population here. Now, the archaeologists have said this cannot come from a gracile race. It can't. Now that creates a problem because they found 40 of these skulls at Cow Swamp, right? And all of them are incredibly massive, huge beings with really thick skulls. Now our thickness is 2 to 4. The one I just held up, I've got here, because I've got this one here, that one is 15. That means it's around about 8 times thicker. Now, everything about these beings is not like us. Now, the Australian government, yes, they found this place at Cow Swamp. I've been there. I've been to Cow Swamp, but I can't get in there. They've made sure of that. So what did the government do? Okay, they found this. They found the skulls. They exhumed 40 skulls. Now, a guy called Chris Stringer, who's one of the top archaeologists in the world, was part of the investigation here. And he called what the government did the greatest archaeological crime of the 20th century. Now, this is what Australia, they do to things like this. This being here, fair income. If you want to fight this being and hit him in the head, you can. You'll break your fist. It is so thick. 8 times thicker than ours, the one I've got there. And the one at Lake Mungo was actually 20 across there. That's 10 times thicker. Now, what the government said was the first one they found at Lake Mungo, said, oh, it's got a brain disease. It's got a brain disease in that, and the skull blows up like that. And everyone said, yeah, happy with that. We'll take that. Brain disease, okay. It's a mutation. When you find 40, and then you find one at Cossack, which is in West Australia, and this is in Victoria, you can't claim they've all got a brain disease. Now, at this burial site, it is the largest late Pleistocene burial site in the world. Not just in Australia, but the world. And you know what's weird about this place? All 40 individuals are buried in different ways, completely different ways. Like this one I've got here. Can you see, this is actually a copy. Can you see that residual reddish brown there? The original skull, which I've got, is completely covered in red ochre inside and out, and every bone has been coated like that. There's no gracile burial like that anywhere in the world. But at this particular place, every burial was different to each other, which means they were very spiritual. But here's the best part. The government took away the 40 skulls, didn't they, Evan?
They did.
They did. They examined them. And they said, oh, they're gross. They're all sorts of things. And guess what happened after that? They lost them. All 40
of course. They always lose that stuff.
But how do you lose 40 when the pictures are up? And Chris Stringer flew from England to Australia to examine and said, this is a modern being. It's not a primitive thing from before. It is smarter than us. By the way, it's brain size. Well, that's 1300 cc, 1540. Yeah. Far smarter than us. And then they lost all 40 of them. What the government said was, we didn't lose it. We gave it to the Lands Council. The Lands Council said, crap, we never got it. We never received it. So what they did was saying, you lost it, and they said they lost it. So they were, who do we blame? Wasn't that clever?
Yeah.
We lost it. Now, I want to make a point. I've been doing archaeology for a while, and we've got some skulls here. I don't have 40, but I haven't lost any of them, you know. I've managed to keep them all. Somehow, somebody in authority managed to lose 40 of them. Now, why did they lose them? Because they don't fit. They are not us.
And don't worry, the sites now.
Oh, there's more. Yeah. I've got the best part to tell you to finish. When I went to see a different being, which I'm going to show you now, which is this one, which has no forehead. Can you see how that's made? No forehead whatsoever. This is 1800 cc. They took me to Cow Swamp because I wanted to go there, but I couldn't go there. Because you know what the government did? They made a rectangular embankment of earth, 3 meters, and it's about 4 kilometers by 6 kilometers. And they made it all around the swamp, 3 meters high, filled it up with water to the top. So it's a massive dam with no and no channels to anyone to use for irrigation. And we're looking at an area that has 10 to 15 inches per year. No one's allowed to use that water for irrigation. The government spent millions and millions of dollars making these walls so the whole thing can be flooded. And you know what that means? No one can go in there and do any more archaeology. They spent around about $30 million destroying that site so no one can go to it after they lost the skulls. Now, when people tell me trust the government, I can't do it. I don't know why, I just can't do it. I think what I'm holding up here is part of a group of beings that had so many different burial techniques, that has a brain size that is 250 cc's bigger than us. And I'm thinking this could be one strand of the Yowies, because they were here at least 50,000 years. They were here forever. And that's how the Australian government deals with the Yowie in Australia. You destroy the site and you lose 40 skulls, and then you stand back and say, I didn't lose it. But they've never given a reason for making this massive rectangular rake. Like, I could see it from 50 k's away when we got on the top of a hill. I said, what's that over there? They said, oh, that's Cow Swamp. I said, Cow Swamp wasn't like that. I said, no, it wasn't until the government got there. It took them a year to build. How much money did they spend? And they never gave a reason for doing it. It's not as if it's going to flood. It's a swamp. So it can't be you put walls up to stop a flood. But this is a swamp in an area that is on the edge of the desert. But no one gets to use the water, because if they did and they emptied the lake, you know what would be there? The Morum. They didn't get them all out. They did not get them all out. They got 40 skulls out, but the talk is there were hundreds there, and they're all the same. They're not from here. So that's a good way to finish this, gentlemen. Are Yowies in Australia? Yeah, and I can tell you where they are, but you'll need to take, what would you need? Scuba diving gear, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'll need to take.
That's not a new story. The Smithsonian Institute has lost like giant skeletons and whatever, and they say the same thing. Oh, we gave them to these guys.
Over 200.
They didn't have them. It's
Easily over 200.
Yeah, it's the same story everywhere, you know, and it's pretty transparent. It's pretty phony, and we don't believe it.
Well, the Smithsonian approached us about one of the rocks we've got and said it's unique in the world. Would you like to send it to us so we can display it?
Yeah,
Their
right.
display would have been in the 5th level in a box that no one will ever see again forever. I respectfully declined multiple requests to send them the rock. I said, no, thank you. We'll keep it here, and we'll keep it on country if you don't mind. So that doesn't surprise me. And praise the Smithsonian, because they obviously inspired the Australian government to do exactly the same thing. If you don't like it, lose it or submerge it. That's what we do in this country.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. If you guys want to discuss Sasquatch and whatever, reach out to me, man, because I got a lot of stuff to share, and you guys obviously are a wealth of information about so many things.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk to you again, and we'd love to probably have you back on again sometime too.
More than happy to, mate. We're always happy to talk about the truth, as you guys are too.
Yeah.
And we know the truth has been hidden, and we've got 6 months left to try and get as much of the truth out we can before the whole thing changes.
Well, that's good. I'm getting my book out just before the new change.
Okay.
So.
And Evan, you want to give some info to our sites? Yeah. We've got a conference coming up. Yep.
So our next event, I'll just share the.
Next event's all about aliens.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it from
There you go. Aliens are part of the mix.
Yeah, they're very much a part of the mist. So we're going to do a whole thing about that from different points of view. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, yeah. No,
Oh,
it should be-
you got Paul Wallace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be speaking with us on that day and talking about his new book.
Which is all about aliens in the Bible.
So, yeah, it should be a good day. So, look forward to it. So, thank you.
Send me the link in email, and I'll post it in our group. By the way, I would be honored. We would be honored if you guys would join our Pork and Beans group.
Oh, look, Evan will do that for sure.
Yeah, no,
Mate.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to.
And I'll also send you my YouTube channel. Actually, I think I've sent you, Stephen, my YouTube link. I've got like over 550 videos talking about Sasquatch and my experiences and their teaching. So
Wow.
maybe if you have a chance to go through some of them, I'm sure you'd enjoy it.
We will.
Definitely.
We will for
Thank you
sure.
so
Don't worry
much.
about that. We're in there now. We have no choice.
Our alienancestry.net.
Yep, that's where you got to go. Yep.
Yeah.
Email me that, and I'll advertise that for you.
What's your regular? Don't you guys have like a regular email, not an event or something? Not an email, but a website.
Yeah. So all our articles on forgottenorigin.com.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where all our articles go.
And you can find all that evidence on what happened at Uluru.
And the earth changes
Yeah.
is all in there. So yeah, they're kind of like our two sites. Yeah.
So Stephen, before you leave, and I'm not trying to keep you any longer than you want, you said you were on the professional tennis tour?
Yeah, used to be, yeah.
What, playing like against McEnroe and Borg and those guys?
No, I played, who did I play? I played Pat Cash once. I played Ken Rosewall.
Yeah.
He was
Kenny
very old.
Rosewall.
Yeah, no, I did play a bit. I played on the what you call the satellite circuit for a while, just for fun. And I did that for quite some time. I did some tennis coaching as well. So it sort of keeps me fit, which is important as you get older. But yeah, I did play a fair bit, and I still play now. In fact, when I finish now, before I do the other, we've got one on in about an hour and a half. I'm going to go and have a hit for a while against the wall. I'll probably listen to the Yowies hooting at me while I'm there because they normally do.
And hey, and like we said, introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm open to having a relationship with you. So,
I will.
What was? Yeah, I mean, I'm serious.
I'm serious too. I will.
Do it from the heart, because love is everything, right?
Yeah,
That's how it all starts. So, what was the score with Rosewall?
It was doubles, but he's an incredible. He was getting on at the time. I think we got beaten 6-4, 6-4, and I was quite happy with that. He can barely serve, honestly. He serves, and by the time the ball bounces, he's on the bloody net because it's so slow, but you can't get past him. You can smash the ball at him, because I'm thinking, okay, I've got time to hit this. I'm going to hammer this and take you out. He is so good on the net, man. He just pushes it away for a winner each time. And I realised maybe lob him because he's not very tall.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
man. That's a good story. Yes. Okay, guys. Well, I mean, I'd like to be selfish and keep you all day, but we really appreciate you coming, and we'll get together again, and let's converse back and forth.
I think people need to know what's going on in Australia and the Yowies and the First Nations people, and there's a lot going on down there that we don't really get enough of. Yeah.
Well,
thank you all for coming up.
Yeah. Oh, and the other, yeah. Thank you very much. The other thing is I've reached out to Donnie. I want Donnie on the show.
We can do that.
Yep.
For sure. No worries. It was on the last show with us.
Yeah. Well, we want him on. I want to talk with Donnie. We're actually been friends for a long time, but we never had him on the show, and I'd like to.
Oh, we'll let him know. We'll contact him and let him know.
I already did let him know. He said in time or whatever. But yeah, get after him, guys. Hey, thank you so much for coming. You guys are beautiful souls, and we really appreciate you. And thanks a lot. So, on behalf of, you look like you want to show us something, Evan.
Oh no, I'm just sending you the links.
Oh, okay. So, on behalf of Port Cunningham and Frank Oliver Baines, this has been the Pork and Bean Show with our special guests, Stephen and Evan Strong. We appreciate you guys. I like your sense of humor too, because Australians are very similar to Canadians humor-wise. Mr. Beans don't get me, but
you're part of Team Inside Out. Remember that Team Inside Out business, because you're part of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it's a Commonwealth thing, part of the Commonwealth. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming, and we love you, and stay in touch.
We will.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
I'm off to tennis now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I love the snow. Don't you know? I want to big old blade. All the buttons coming down. Take it out hot and high, hot and high, hot and high. For the tummy, oh my, love a big old plate of pork and beef. Goody. Love it. In the tummy, love baby, love high, love ooh, love why. I love me some bottom way. Don't you know you gotta need that feed. You got to have some pork and bean. Pork and bean. I'm gonna holler, yo, mashed potato, oh, have a now, don't wait for later, by the time